1941. In the frozen trenches of the Eastern Front, German soldiers learned to fear silence more than explosions. They weren't listening for the roar of heavy bombers or the scream of artillery. They were listening for a gentle whoosh, the sound of wood and canvas gliding through the night sky. It sounded like a broomstick, and when they heard it, it was already too late. They called them the Nachthexen, the Night Witches. The German Luftwaffe had the most advanced fighters in the world, and they were being terrorized by wooden biplanes from the 1920s. This is the story of how an all-female unit took crop dusters into the heart of World War II, humiliated the Luftwaffe, and became legends. Where history speaks. To understand why these women were flying, we have to look at the absolute catastrophe of 1941. Operation Barbarossa had just begun. The German war machine smashed across the Soviet border and the Red Army was reeling. In just 1 week, the Luftwaffe destroyed 4,000 Soviet aircraft. Most were blown up before they could even get off the runway. Stalin was desperate. He needed planes, and he needed warm bodies to fly them. Enter Marina Raskova. Raskova was the Soviet Amelia Earhart. She was a celebrity navigator who had already broken long-distance flight records. While the Soviet military brass insisted that combat was a man's job, Raskova used her personal fame to get a direct meeting with Stalin. Her argument was simple logic. We are in a war of annihilation. Can we really afford to bench 50% of our population? Stalin agreed. On October 8, 1941, he authorized 3 female aviation regiments, but the 588th Night Bomber Regiment was unique. From the pilots to the navigators to the mechanics and the loaders, every single person was a woman. The volunteers were students, factory workers, and teachers. Some were teenagers, and when they arrived for training, the military didn't even have gear for them. They were issued men's uniforms. The boots were so big the women had to stuff them with rags just to walk without tripping. But the uniforms were luxury compared to the planes. They were assigned the Polikarpov Po-2. This wasn't a warplane, it was a crop duster made of plywood and fabric designed in the 1920s. The specs are laughable. Speed. Its top speed was 94 miles per hour, slower than a Messerschmitt could stall. Defense. It had 0 armor. A single tracer round could ignite the canvas skin like a matchstick. The cockpit. It was open air. There was no glass canopy. In the Russian winter, flying at night meant enduring temperatures of -40 degrees. Frostbite was just as dangerous as German bullets. Navigation. They had no radar, no radios. They navigated using stopwatches and landmarks. To the German Luftwaffe, flying Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, these biplanes were ancient relics. But the Night Witches were about to turn these weaknesses into their greatest weapon. The all-female 588th discovered a strange anomaly in aerial physics. Their crop dusters were so slow that their maximum speed was actually lower than the stall speed of the German fighters. If a German fighter tried to slow down enough to get behind a Night Witch and take aim, his advanced aircraft would stall and fall out of the sky. The Po-2 was literally too slow to kill. But their attack strategy was pure nerves of steel. Because they couldn't outrun anyone, they used stealth. A pilot would fly near the target, cut the engine to idle, and glide downward. The engine noise would vanish. The only sound left was the wind whistling through the bracing wires on the wings. German soldiers on the ground said it sounded like the swish of a witch's broom, hence they nicknamed them Nachthexen. They would glide over trenches, supply depots and encampments, drop their bombs, restart the engine, and vanish into the dark. The psychological impact was devastating. The Germans couldn't sleep. They couldn't light fires to stay warm. They were being hunted by ghosts. But maintaining that relentless, ghostly presence required a physical toll that the history books often overlook. Imagine the physical toll. You fly into enemy territory, drop bombs, return to base. ace. You land in the dark. The all-female ground crew, who are freezing in the snow, have to manually lift 100-kilogram bombs and hook them under the wings. You refuel. You take off. You do it again. They barely slept. They lived on adrenaline. The Germans grew so frustrated by these plywood pests that rumors spread through the ranks. It was said that shooting down one of these elusive biplanes was considered such a difficult feat of precision flying. It was the only way to prove you were a true ace. But respect couldn't stop bullets, and eventually the Germans stopped being scared and started adapting. The Po-2 had no parachutes. The weight was too heavy for the small engines. If you burned, you burned. And the bond between pilot and navigator became everything because when one went down, both went down. During a mission in Crimea, a pilot named Daria Nussel was shot in the head by a German fighter. Her body slumped forward, pinning the control stick down and sending the plane into a fatal dive. Her navigator, Irina Kasharina, couldn't reach the controls from the back seat. In the middle of a nosedive, Kasharina reached out of her open cockpit into the freezing wind, grabbed her dead pilot by the collar, and physically pulled her corpse off the stick with one hand while flying the plane with the other. She managed to land them safely. Then, on July 31st, 1943, the Germans finally sprang their trap. They arranged searchlights in massive webs. Once a wooden plane was caught in the beam, it was blindingly bright. The pilot was blinded, and the canvas plane lit up like a flare. Commander Maria Smirnova watched in horror as 4 of her crews were lit up and shredded by anti-aircraft fire in a single night. Among the dead was Irina Kasharina, the same woman who had saved her plane months earlier. Despite devastating losses like Irina's, the regiment refused to stay grounded. By the end of the war, the regiment had flown over 23,000 sorties and dropped 3,000 tons of bombs. They had flown from the Russian border all the way to Berlin. Yet, when the victory parade was held in Moscow, the Night Witches were grounded. Their planes were deemed too slow and too ugly for the cameras. Many of these women returned to civilian life only to find their service forgotten. Maria Smirnova tried to become a commercial pilot but was rejected. The Soviet Union seemed eager to forget that women had ever fought in the front lines. In 1972, astronomers discovered a new asteroid in the main belt. They needed a name. They remembered a young astronomy student from Moscow University named Yevgenia Rudneva. She had abandoned her studies in 1941 to join the 588th Night Bomber Regiment and was killed in action in 1944. They named the asteroid 1907 Rudneva. Zhenya never got to finish her degree. She never got to become a scientist. But today, she is finally where she always wanted to be, flying in the silence among the stars. If you liked the video and want to be notified as soon as a new episode is released, please hit the like button and subscribe. And if you want a specific historical topic that might be unknown to a lot of people covered here, leave a comment. Thank you for watching and stay curious.